Hello and welcome to the controversial podcast. I'm going to be talking about three recent issues that have been in the news. One slightly less recent, but the other two very recent indeed. I'll be talking about the issues with France in Jersey and why that all might be kicking off at the moment and how this might be even relevant for the future. Then I'll be also discussing the aggression in Israel and Palestine, why it is and how I'm pretty much disgusted by the reporting in general mainstream media on this. And I've seen a lot of other independent news stations, mainly on YouTube or even online websites, how they've been reporting in quite a different manner and why the news might be having different intentions than these individual organisations. And finally, I'm going to go over the stuff unravelling in Greensill capital. There's been a lot more going on, and I'm going to explain what is actually going on and what Greensill is. Now, firstly, on the issue of what's been going on in France a while ago. So it all started in regards to Jersey and the basically the fishing agreement that came about after the Brexit deal. Now, of course, for Jersey to be a part of the Union, they need some sort of autonomy and being able to make decisions by themselves and protect their own waters that, of course, are shared with the UK. So, essentially, the agreement stated out that Jersey was able to basically stay within the deal. You know, the French still need to have the same fishing deal with the rest of the UK waters. However, Jersey is allowed to basically police the way the French are fishing in the waters more than what the rest of the UK decides to, which is perfectly fine. I mean, Jersey's got the right to protect their waters and police it however they wish. So they gave something like 3 months, I believe. But 3 months they gave to the basically the French authorities, saying that, hey, we want this documentation so that we can basically police the waters how they wanted to. So it came over that, of course, once the, I believe, 3 months was up, when, of course, they said that we're going to start policing more and we want this documentation to be through, that the French authorities and fishermen basically many of them didn't have the proper paperwork. Of course, there were exceptions which did have the right paperwork and were allowed to fish in the waters like they would have before. But, of course, there are always going to be some fishermen, and in this case it was the majority that didn't have the right documentation. They basically had to prove that they rely on fishing in Jersey's waters regularly. That's where a large amount of their income comes from. Now, of course, amidst this row in Jersey over fishing, more fishermen wanted to fish in the waters. It's the theory on exclusivity. If you make an item or go into a place more exclusive, you're going to be more inclined to go there. So many just went there for the drama of it. Of course, not all, but there were a larger amount of people trying to get into Jersey's waters than there would have been normally. So that's where that must have come from. So, now, it went a bit mad after that. Of course, France is reaching its election year, so the presidential elections in France are coming up. And put it this way, Le Pen has been climbing up in the polls recently. Even in some polls, she's ahead of Macron. And what's been going on is basically Le Pen is seen as quite a nationalist candidate. I mean, she's more right-wing than Macron by a mile. Macron's seen as almost centrist. Le Pen, well, is labelled far-right, but I'd disagree with that term, to be honest. But she's certainly leaning right-wing, more so than Macron, which she is quite nationalist as well. She's less globalist and less supportive of the European Union than Macron. So definitely more focused on French domestic policy. Now, Macron, of course, to be able to capture some of the right-wing votes, you know, the mild right-wing that are starting to go to Le Pen, he needs to have a display of nationalism, a little display of hey, we're protecting French rights and all that. So, predictably, they decided to, fight back against Jersey, a small island, like a good French forces would do. So, what they've done, they've spoken out against this basically Jersey policing its waters, but they've allowed, this is where it gets ridiculous, French fishermen to blockade Jersey from having imports, and this is full on the government's fault. This one, it was they said that they'll block the power to Jersey, and of course, Jersey being a small island is quite reliant on French power, and they're going to cut the French, basically the power that just normal people in Jersey rely on, which is disgusting. What a way to try and they blame the UK for it. That's the worst thing. But it's Jersey, just using their freedoms that they've been given, especially under, the changes during Brexit. They, of course, want to self-govern slightly, and that's what's happened. But it's bang out of order, and of course, the Royal Navy came over. Boris Johnson sent the Royal Navy over to basically escort the French fishermen out of the UK waters, and that's exactly what happens. And of course, Macron was on Twitter saying, "Oh, this is bang out of order. Oh, they're going over and doing all that." Basically, having a go at the UK for protecting waters and protecting the honour of the Union. And yep, it's all gone quiet now. So that's basically what's happened in Jersey. Blockade and almost warlike actions towards Jersey, a tiny island. It's ridiculous. Now I'm going to talk about a bit of a controversial one. It's in the name, so I mean, you shouldn't have clicked on the controversial podcast if you didn't want a little bit of controversy. But there's been accelerations in Palestine and Israel. Now, unfortunately, people who recognise the suffering of Palestinian peoples are often referred to as xenophobes, which is half of the reason why Jeremy Corbyn was kicked out of the Labour Party. And I'm right-wing, and I actually agree with him with a certain of his policies. Not all, don't get me wrong. I mean, I wouldn't be right-wing if I agreed with all of his policies, but with in regards to Palestine and even some of his working hour stuff, but I can see a positive side to some of them, but or at least agree to some extent. But moving on to what's been happening. So basically, the media have been reported on a terrorist Hassan, I believe, and basically a rebel organisation. It's not too dissimilar from the rebels that went around in Syria. And basically, they've been going against the government. Of course, this government, democratically elected by some, noticeably not the Palestinians, because they don't have the right to vote in Israel, but especially in the Gaza Strip. But basically, there's been rockets being sent over each side, artillery strikes from both sides, remember, not just the Palestinians, but basically, the news only likes to paint the picture of a one-sided battle. There's basically the Palestinians going over and fighting Israel, apparently, according to the news, but no, that's not how it works. In fact, I would say the Palestinians are the victims in this story, because over the last few decades, there's been American support of the Israeli regime, I'm going to call it, because, well, at least in Palestinian areas like the Gaza Strip, the Gaza Strip is basically an area that's been declared as Palestinian mainly territories. Now, this aggression sparked after basically Israelis would go into Palestinian homes and Palestinians would be taken out of their homes. Of course, if they chose not to leave, the Israeli army would basically force them out, arrest them, and beat them. And after this, there was basically shootings which involved mass genocides of Palestinians and then murders of Palestinian children. Now, this aggression, of course, sparked after, they were basically reducing the amount of Palestinians in a Palestinian area, trying to build a Israeli majority, which is basically ethnic cleansing. So they're basically trying to change the ethnic makeup of a given area, in this case the Gaza Strip. Yeah, so that's why I don't think it's that irrational seeing, a rebellion with, terrorist aspects, but then you could also debate that the rebel forces in Syria, from the definition of terrorism, they technically are. They're terrorising the existing regime. That's what it is. But terrorism is quite a difficult subject. It's where do you draw the line between a rebellion and terrorism? That's the issue. But I believe that these Palestinian people have been brought to fight back against a government that doesn't support them, doesn't represent them, and, basically infringes on their rights, remove civil liberties. Palestinians in parts of Israel aren't allowed to work, they're not allowed to vote for their government, they're not allowed to, keep their homes. It's terrible. They're viewed as second-class citizens, and the Israeli government has been trying to ethnically cleanse the area for ages. So that's a little bit of information that mainstream media like BBC, ITV haven't been saying, but there has been quite a few good media programmes that I would advise watching, which they're a lot more independent. They're not they don't rely on clicks as much. They're not relying on public funds. They don't need to warrant their output as much. They pride themselves on their basically being independent. That's of course this podcast. I want to be independent, and I do a lot of research. I don't shout out about the statistics, but trust me, I have read through a lot of stuff before making one of these episodes, especially one as controversial as this. I don't want to bore the average person with these statistics that end up making the topic quite lucrative and just more complex than it needs to be. But I would advise watching Maya Tusi. It's a great independent site on YouTube. And then also TLDR. That's really good. And then you've got a few other podcasts. I also like, it's not as independent, but it's at least some alternative media. There's talk radio. Okay, so now moving on to the topic of Greensill Capital. It's been involved. That's the thing that's been coming out on David Cameron and the lobbying scandal. It's known as a Greensill inquiry that's going to come out soon. It's a Greensill investigation on the morality and the rules towards lobbying of ex-ministers. This one's centred around David Cameron, who was lobbying, messaging many cabinet members and senior politicians and civil servants on Greensill and basically requesting preferential treatment. Now, lobbying is quite a interesting topic, okay, especially in regards to ex-ministers, because ex-ministers, they of course, they're quite intriguing to employ. I mean, they have some political contacts. They're always going to be employed by probably companies after their tenure is up. But you've got to think, politicians have chronic job insecurity. I mean, by a single scandal or a wrongly twisted news article, their career can be up. I believe lobbying is an opportunity for them to, something that they can do after their time as a politician is up. But of course, there is a line to be drawn. There should be protection against unexplained preferential